My name is Dara Morgan, 32 years old, and I never thought I'd see my own mother's face contort with such contempt. 10 minutes before my grandmother's will reading, she declared to the entire family, "Your sister deserves everything. You're just an unlovable burden." They handed Jessica my grandmother's house jewelry and accounts, while I stood silent, my heart shattering into pieces. But when the lawyers arrived, I slid a document across the table that made their smiles freeze instantly. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button before I tell you what happened next. Growing up, my grandmother Eleanor, or Nana L as I called her, was my sanctuary in a house that often felt cold. From my earliest memories, she wrapped me in the kind of unconditional love that made the world seem kinder. Every Saturday morning, we'd bake snickerdoodle cookies in her sunny kitchen, her patient hands guiding mine as flour dusted our noses. Summer afternoons were spent in her vibrant garden, where she taught me to nurture seedlings into flowering beauty. "Plants are like people, Dara," she'd say. "They need attention, care, and love to flourish. Some just need different kinds of care than others." Those quiet moments in her Victorian home on Maple Street were when she'd share our family history, pulling out weathered photo albums with images of ancestors who crossed oceans for a better life. I'd listen captivated as Nana L wove tales of courage and perseverance. "You have their strength in your blood," she'd tell me, her blue eyes twinkling. Never forget that. My younger sister Jessica was different. 3 years my junior, she was the golden child from the moment she took her first steps. Where I was practical and thoughtful, Jessica was vivacious and charming. She could enter a room and instantly become its center, her laughter musical, her presence magnetic. Our mother Laura adored this about her, constantly praising Jessica's social nature while overlooking my quieter achievements. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became a refrain I heard throughout childhood. When I brought home straight, as mother would nod distractedly. When Jessica brought home C's, there were celebrations for her trying her best. Christmas mornings revealed the disparity most clearly, Jessica's pile of gifts towering over my modest few. Birthday parties for Jessica were elaborate affairs with dozens of guests. Mine were often forgotten entirely. Nana L noticed. She'd arrive with thoughtfully chosen gifts just for me, books that expanded my horizons and journals that gave me space to express my thoughts. "Some people shine like glitter," she once whispered to me, after mother had gushed over Jessica's middle school play performance while ignoring my science fair win. "But others shine like diamonds. Takes pressure and time to see their true value, but they last forever." I pursued my education in finance and accounting with single-minded determination. While Jessica dropped out of community college after one semester to pursue modeling, I worked 3 jobs to put myself through state university. Mother helped Jessica with rent for her downtown apartment, but claimed she couldn't assist with my tuition. "Jessica needs to focus on her career," she'd say. "You're smart enough to figure it out." And I did. I graduated summa cum laude, secured a position at a respected financial firm, and built my life brick by steady brick. All while Jessica bounced between modeling gigs that never quite materialized into the glamorous career she'd promised, and a string of boyfriends who seemed to diminish in quality with each iteration. 2 years ago, Nana L's health began to decline. What started as occasional forgetfulness progressed to concerning lapses and physical frailty. After a fall left her with a broken hip, doctors confirmed early-stage dementia alongside her physical injuries. I didn't hesitate. Despite my demanding job, I found an apartment just 15 minutes from Nana L's home and restructured my work schedule to accommodate regular visits. 3 to 4 times weekly, I'd stop by to help with medications, grocery shopping, cleaning, and most importantly, company. We'd sit in her sunroom watching birds at the feeder, or I'd read aloud from her favorite mystery novels. Sometimes we'd just hold hands in comfortable silence. Jessica visited perhaps once a month, always with elaborate excuses about casting calls or social obligations. When she did appear, it was usually to ask for money or to complain about her latest life crisis. She'd breeze in wearing designer clothes, kiss Nana L's cheek, and be gone within 30 minutes. Mother visited more frequently, but spent most of her time scrutinizing Nana L's possessions or suggesting she downsize by giving away valuable antiques that had been in our family for generations. 1 week before she passed, Nana L had a surprisingly lucid day. As I arranged fresh flowers by her bedside, she grasped my hand with unexpected strength. "Dara," she said, her eyes clearer than they had been in months, Trust the process. I asked what she meant, but she just smiled and squeezed my fingers before drifting to sleep. 3 days later, she slipped into a coma. 4 days after that, with me by her bedside, she took her final breath. The funeral arrangements fell almost entirely to me. Mother was too devastated to help with planning, while Jessica was busy ensuring her black dress was appropriate for social media condolence photos. I selected the casket, organized the service, and wrote the obituary, honoring the remarkable woman who had given me strength my entire life. At the funeral, Jessica sobbed dramatically at the podium, sharing stories of a grandmother I barely recognized in her telling. Mother stood beside her, arm wrapped protectively around Jessica's shoulders while I sat in the front row alone. Later, as I sorted through Nana L's personal items, I found her journal. Flipping through it, my stomach knotted as I read entries from the past year. Laura and Jessica visited today, again asking about my investments. Laura suggested I should simplify my will, said Jessica could handle everything. Didn't mention Dara once. Something feels wrong. And another Jessica brought paperwork, said it was just to help manage finances. Language looked like power of attorney. Said I was confused when I questioned it. Waiting for Dara's visit tomorrow to ask her about it. I closed the journal, my hands trembling. Suddenly, Nana L's cryptic final message made more sense. Trust the process. But what process, I would soon find out. 2 weeks after the funeral, we gathered at Nana L's Victorian home for the reading of her will. The house itself was a character in our family story. 3 stories of crafted woodwork and stained glass filled with antiques and heirlooms collected over generations. The grandfather clock in the foyer had crossed the Atlantic with my great-great-grandparents. The crystal chandelier in the dining room had illuminated family dinners for over a century. Each room held treasures beyond their monetary value, though that value was substantial. Beyond the house, Nana L's estate included her jewelry collection, featuring several museum-quality Art Deco pieces, a portfolio of blue-chip stocks she'd shrewdly invested in during the 70s, her late husband's, vintage car collection, and liquid assets that, while not making her extraordinarily wealthy, certainly provided comfortable security. In the days leading up to the will reading, Mother's behavior grew increasingly strange. She called me daily asking if I'd heard anything from the lawyers while simultaneously avoiding direct conversations about the arrangements. When I mentioned preserving certain family photos, she snapped that I shouldn't count my chickens and quickly changed the subject. Jessica, who had barely shown interest in Nana L's collection of first edition books or antique silver, suddenly became an expert. She called asking detailed questions about specific jewelry pieces and mentioned casually that she'd always loved the Victorian house, despite complaining about its old person smell whenever she visited during Nana L's lifetime. On the morning of the will reading, I arrived 30 minutes early, hoping for a moment of quiet reflection in Nana L's favorite sunroom. Instead, I found Mother and Jessica already there, hunched over papers at the dining room table. They jumped when I entered, Jessica hastily shuffling documents into a folder. "Oh, it's you, Mother," said her tone, making those 3 words feel like an accusation. "Good morning," I replied, setting down the box of pastries I'd brought. "I thought everyone might want something to eat before the reading." Jessica flashed her practiced smile, the one that appeared on her Instagram posts, but never reached her eyes. How thoughtful, but I'm watching my carbs. Mother barely acknowledged the gesture, instead checking her watch. "The lawyers should be here soon. We've already been discussing arrangements for afterward." "Arrangements?" I asked, an uneasy feeling settling in my stomach. That's when Mother stood, smoothing her expensive black dress, and delivered the blow that would have shattered me had I not already suspected what was coming. "Let's be clear about something before everyone else arrives," she said, her voice cold. "Your sister deserves everything from this estate. She's been the light of this family while you've been nothing but an unlovable burden." Nana understood that, which is why she updated her will last year. My breath caught as Jessica dangled a set of keys. "The house keys," she explained unnecessarily. "Mom already gave them to me since I'll be moving in next month. I'm thinking of converting your grandmother's craft room into a home yoga studio for my Instagram followers. And the jewelry collection will look so much better on Jessica than gathering dust in a safe." Mother continued as if I hadn't gone with Nana L to reset the vintage emerald ring just last year, listening to her stories about how grandfather had saved for 3 years to buy it for her. The investment portfolio will need proper management, Jessica added with a condescending smile. Good thing Mom knows a guy who can handle it better than those stuffy bank trustees Nana used. I stood silently as they continued listing all the ways they planned to dismantle and distribute the legacy my grandmother had built and preserved. The antique furniture that would be sold to modernize the house. The first edition books that would be evaluated by Mother's friend who owned a used bookstore. The charitable foundation donations that would be redirected to more appropriate causes. All I could think about were the nights I'd spent helping Nana L up the stairs when her hip pain was severe. The afternoons organizing her medications. The mornings making her favorite blueberry pancakes just to see her smile. The countless hours simply being present while Jessica was too busy and Mother was too concerned with appearances. I need a minute, I managed to say, excusing myself to the powder room down the hall. Once alone, I gripped the vintage marble sink, staring at my reflection in the ornate mirror. Tears threatened, but I held them back, remembering one of the last lucid conversations I'd had with Nana L. Doing what's right isn't always doing what's easy, Dara, she'd said, patting my hand. But at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself. Make choices you can live with. I splashed cold water on my face, took 3 deep breaths, and made my decision. I would remain composed. I would wait for the official proceedings. I would trust the process, whatever that meant. By the time I returned to the main room, other family members had begun arriving. Cousins from Philadelphia, an uncle from Boston, several of Nana L's bridge club friends. Mother had transformed entirely, dabbing at non-existent tears while accepting condolences. Jessica worked the room like a politician, sharing exaggerated stories of devotion to her beloved grandmother. I stood near the fireplace, accepting genuine hugs from relatives who had actually witnessed my care for Nana L. Uncle Thomas squeezed my shoulder and whispered, "Your grandmother was so proud of you," which nearly broke my composure. At precisely 10 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Mr. Patterson, Nana L's lawyer for over 30 years, entered, along with a younger colleague I didn't recognize. Mother hurried to greet them, Jessica close behind. I noticed Mr. Patterson's eyes searching the room until they found me. He gave me a slight nod, his expression unreadable. Something in that nod steadied me. Perhaps, just perhaps, Nana L had indeed trusted the process after all. We gathered in Nana L's study, a room that perfectly captured her essence. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined with classics and mysteries. The antique desk, where she'd written hundreds of letters in her elegant script. The worn leather chair where I'd often found her napping, a novel open on her lap. Now that chair stood empty, a painful reminder of her absence. Mr. Patterson and his associate arranged their documents on the desk as everyone found seats. Mother positioned herself prominently in an armchair near the fireplace. Jessica perched on its arm like a queen, surveying her subjects. I took a seat in the back corner next to Uncle Thomas. "Before we begin," Mr. Patterson said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses, "I'd like to introduce my colleague, Miss Abigail Wright from the State Bar Association, who is here to ensure all proceedings follow legal protocol." Mother frowned slightly at this unexpected addition, but quickly resumed her sorrowful expression. "As you know," Mr. Patterson continued, "we are here to read the last will and testament of Eleanor Grace Morgan." Jessica leaned toward our cousin Sarah, whispering loudly enough for me to hear. "I'm thinking of painting the living room charcoal gray with gold accents. So much more modern." Mother nodded approvingly while shooting me a triumphant glance. My hand moved to my purse fingers, finding the folder I'd placed there that morning. The folder with confidential stamped across its front in red letters. 2 months before Nana L's passing, during one of her clearer periods, she had asked me to meet privately with Mr. Patterson. I'd assumed it was about her medical directives, which we'd already discussed extensively. Instead, I found myself in his wood-paneled office as he explained Nana L's concerns. "Your grandmother has expressed worry about certain family members' financial motivations," he'd explained delicately. "She believes there may be attempts to circumvent her wishes after her passing." My mother and sister, I'd stated, not as a question. Mr. Patterson had nodded. "Miss Morgan has updated her will with specific provisions to protect her true intentions. She's also prepared this document, which she asks you to keep confidential unless circumstances at the will reading indicate it's needed." He'd handed me the sealed folder. "Your grandmother trusts your judgment, Dara. She said you'll know if and when this should be presented. Now, watching Jessica already discussing renovation plans for a house she didn't yet legally own, I knew the time had come. I stood quietly and approached the desk. "Mr. Patterson," I said, my voice steadier than I felt my grandmother ask me to provide this if necessary. I slid the folder across the polished mahogany surface. "What are you doing?" Mother demanded, half rising from her chair. Mr. Patterson opened the folder, examining its contents carefully. He exchanged a glance with Miss Wright, who nodded slightly. "This appears to be in order," he said, his professional demeanor never wavering, "and properly notarized." "What is that?" Jessica asked, her confident smile faltering. Mr. Patterson looked around the room. "This document, executed by Eleanor Morgan 3 months ago, is a codicil to her will, along with a personal statement regarding her estate planning decisions. It includes affidavits from her physician confirming her mental competence at the time of signing, as well as video documentation." Mother's face flushed. "That's unnecessary. We all know Nana was confused in her final months." "On the contrary," Miss Wright interjected, "the medical documentation here is quite thorough in confirming Mrs. Morgan's lucidity and decision-making capacity." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees as Mr. Patterson cleared his throat and began reading the actual will. "I, Eleanor Grace Morgan, being of sound mind and body, hereby declare this to be my last will and testament, revoking all previous wills and codicils." As he continued reading, Mother and Jessica's expressions transformed from confidence to disbelief, then to outrage. Nana L. had left her Victorian home and the majority of her assets to be placed in a trust. I was named as trustee with specific instructions for maintaining the family property and managing the investments. Jessica would receive a monthly stipend from the trust, but only if she maintained steady employment for at least 6 consecutive months. Mother received only Nana L's collection of decorative thimbles items she had often mocked as worthless dust collectors. Then came the most devastating part, a supplementary letter Nana L. had written, explaining her decisions. "During my illness," Mr. Patterson read, "I witnessed concerning behavior from my daughter Laura and my granddaughter Jessica. On multiple occasions, they attempted to pressure me into changing my will, going so far as to present me with documents to sign while I was on pain medication. They suggested selling family heirlooms I wished to preserve, and made disparaging remarks about Dara, the only family member who consistently provided care and comfort during my decline." Jessica made a choked sound while Mother's knuckles turned white as she gripped the armchair. "I make these provisions not out of malice," the letter continued, "but out of love for my family and a desire to protect our legacy. Dara has demonstrated the responsibility, integrity, and compassion needed to serve as trustee. It is my hope that in time all my family will understand that true wealth lies not in possessions but in how we care for one another." As Mr. Patterson finished reading, the silence in the room was absolute. Mother's confident smile had frozen into a grimace of shock. Jessica's face had drained of all color. I sat quietly, emotions churning beneath my composed exterior. Vindication, yes, but also profound sadness that it had come to this. Nana L. had trusted the process indeed, and she had trusted me to see it through. The silence lasted approximately 3 seconds before Mother erupted. "This is preposterous." Her face transformed from ghostly white to crimson in an instant. Eleanor was not in her right mind. She was manipulated. She pointed a trembling finger at me. By her, Jessica's shock manifested differently. Tears streamed down her face, smearing her perfect makeup. "There must be some mistake," she sobbed. "Nana loved me best. Everyone knows that." Around the room, relatives shifted uncomfortably. Some avoided eye contact, while others watched the unfolding drama with undisguised fascination. Aunt Patty, Mother's younger sister, moved to sit beside me, her presence a silent show of support. "I assure you, Mrs. Morgan, there is no mistake," Mr. Patterson said calmly. "Your mother was extremely thorough in documenting her wishes and her mental capacity." "We'll contest this, Mother," declared, rising to her full height. "Jessica and I discussed everything with Eleanor last summer. She promised the house would go to Jessica." "Any such discussions were not formalized in a legal document," Miss Wright pointed out, "whereas the will we've just read has been properly executed with multiple witnesses." "Show us the video," Jessica demanded suddenly. "You mentioned a video." Mr. Patterson nodded to his associate, who set up a laptop on the desk. The screen flickered to life, and suddenly Nana L was there sitting in the very leather chair that now stood empty. Though visibly frail, her eyes were clear and her voice steady. "I'm recording this message to accompany my revised will," she began. "I'm fully aware that my decisions may upset certain family members, particularly my daughter Laura and my granddaughter Jessica." She explained how she'd overheard them discussing selling her antiques while she was supposedly napping. How Jessica had brought a document for her to sign that upon closer inspection would have granted Jessica power of attorney. How Laura had suggested multiple times that Dara was too busy with her career to be bothered with inheritance responsibilities. "I love my family, all of them," Nana L continued. "But love doesn't mean enabling behavior that harms others. I believe these provisions are in everyone's best interest for the long term." As the video ended, Jessica lunged across the room toward the laptop. "That's enough. Turn it off." Mr. Patterson's assistant quickly secured the computer while Miss Wright stepped between Jessica and the desk. "You've always been jealous of me," Jessica shrieked, turning toward me. "Always trying to make me look bad. What did you tell Nana about me? What lies did you spread?" "I didn't need to tell her anything," I said quietly, finding strength in truth. She saw for herself. Mother advanced toward me, decades of resentment contorting her features. "You think you're so perfect, don't you, little Miss Responsible? Always making the rest of us look bad. You've been trying to steal Jessica's place since the day she was born." "What place would that be, Mother?" I asked, standing my ground. "The place in your heart, because that's always been exclusively Jessica's territory." "How dare you speak to me that way?" she sputtered. "After everything I've done for you." The painful irony of that statement hung in the air between us. "We're leaving," Mother announced, grabbing her purse. "And our lawyers will be in touch. Come, Jessica." Jessica paused in the doorway, her tear-streaked face suddenly calculating. "You'll regret this, Dara. Nobody crosses me and gets away with it." The threat lingered in the air as they stormed out the front door, slamming with enough force to rattle the crystal chandelier in the foyer. The remaining family members reacted with varying degrees of awkwardness. Some mumbled excuses and followed Mother and Jessica out. Others approached me with tentative support, though I could see the calculation behind some of their eyes as they reassessed my new position as trustee of substantial assets. Uncle Thomas stayed behind, his weathered face kind as he sat beside me. "Your grandmother made the right choice," he said simply. "Laura has always been my sister, but that doesn't mean I'm blind to her faults. Or to your strengths." Mr. Patterson approached with a thick folder of documents. "There will be a lot to go through, Dara. The trust documents, property transfers, investment accounts. Are you available to meet at my office next week?" I nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settling onto my shoulders. "Yes, and thank you for everything today." "Don't thank me," he replied with a small smile. "Thank Eleanor. She was an extraordinary woman with exceptional foresight." As the house emptied, I found myself alone in Nana L's sunroom. The afternoon light streamed through the stained glass panels she'd installed decades ago, casting rainbow patterns across the worn hardwood floor. The enormity of what had just happened washed over me in waves. I had known Mother didn't love me the way she loved Jessica. I had accepted that painful reality years ago. But to hear her call me an unlovable burden so casually, as if stating an obvious fact, had cut deeper than I wanted to admit. That night in my apartment, with no audience to maintain composure, for I finally allowed myself to cry. For the grandmother I'd lost. For the mother I'd never really had. For the sister who saw me only as competition rather than family. I cried until my throat was raw and my eyes swollen. The ringing phone interrupted my grief. Checking the caller ID, I was surprised to see Jessica's husband Brad's name on the screen. "Dara, it's Brad. I wanted you to know I think you did the right thing today." Jessica told me what happened. His voice was low, as if he was trying not to be overheard. "They've been planning this for months, ever since your grandmother's diagnosis. I tried to tell Jessica it wasn't right, but she doesn't listen to anyone who disagrees with her," I finished. "Exactly." He sighed heavily. "Look, I can't talk long, but if you need anything evidence of what they were planning, text messages, anything, I'm on your side." The call ended, leaving me with the first ally I hadn't expected. Perhaps I wasn't as alone in this battle as I'd thought. Mother wasted no time launching her counterattack. 3 days after the will reading, I received formal notice that she and Jessica had retained Martin Schuyler, a lawyer known for aggressive tactics in contesting wills. Their filing alleged undue influence, claiming I had manipulated Nana L. during her illness to secure the inheritance for myself. The local gossip circles where Mother had cultivated relationships for decades became battlegrounds. Stories began circulating about how I had allegedly isolated my grandmother, turned her against her own daughter, and fabricated concerns about Mother and Jessica's intentions. What Mother hadn't anticipated was that her financial situation would come under scrutiny during the legal proceedings. Discovery revealed that she and Jessica had accumulated significant debts they had planned to settle with the inheritance. Mother's designer wardrobe and luxury car had been financed through home equity loans on her house, which was now underwater. Jessica's modeling career, it turned out, consisted primarily of occasional local department store catalog work, supplemented by heavily filtered Instagram posts suggesting a much more glamorous lifestyle. My colleagues at the financial firm rallied around me. My boss granted flexible hours to accommodate legal meetings, and coworkers covered my projects when court dates required my absence. Friends I hadn't heard from in years reached out after hearing about the situation, offering support and sharing their own memories of Nana L's kindness. Not everyone was supportive. Anonymous messages began appearing on my social media accounts. Gold-digging granddaughter steals family inheritance, and some people pretend to care just to get the cash. I knew the source wasn't actually anonymous. Jessica's distinctive phrasing was evident in every hateful word. The conflict invaded every aspect of family life. At cousin Melissa's wedding, Jessica created a scene during the reception, loudly accusing me of elder abuse, while guests looked on in horror. Mother attempted to enter Nana L's house using her old key, only to discover I had changed the locks on Mr. Patterson's advice. The responding police officers were treated to Mother's theatrical breakdown on the front porch, which a neighbor helpfully recorded and sent to me afterward. After this incident, Mr. Patterson suggested filing for a restraining order. Their behavior is becoming increasingly erratic, he warned. We need to protect both you and the property. The court granted the order, further enraging Mother and Jessica. Their response was to escalate their public relations campaign against me, creating a social media page titled Justice for Eleanor that twisted facts and fabricated scenarios, painting them as victims of my manipulation. Brad, Jessica's husband, proved an unexpected ally. One evening, he met me at a coffee shop 20 miles from town, looking over his shoulder the entire time. Jessica doesn't know I'm here, he said, sliding a USB drive across the table. This has text messages between Jessica and your mom going back 18 months. They literally started planning how to spend your grandmother's money while she was in the hospital after her fall. I stared at the small device. Why are you helping me? Brad ran a hand through his hair. I married Jessica because I loved her spontaneity, her liveliness. But this calculating cruelty isn't what I signed up for. And your grandmother was always kind to me, even when Jessica and I were going through rough patches. The evidence on the drive was damning. Messages discussing how to get around that annoying trust Nana keeps mentioning, and strategizing about getting me out of the picture during key medical appointments. Most shocking was discovering that Mother had taken out loans from predatory lenders using future inheritance as collateral, a legally dubious move that explained her desperation. The emotional toll began affecting my health. Sleepless nights left dark circles under my eyes. My normally healthy appetite disappeared, pounds dropping from my already slim frame. Headaches became constant companions as stress tightened muscles I didn't know could ache. Finding solace became crucial for survival. I began spending evenings at Nana L's house, not dealing with the estate as I'd claimed, but simply sitting in her favorite spots, reading her books, feeling her presence. I discovered journals dating back decades, chronicles of family history and personal reflections that helped me understand her better in death than I sometimes had in life. One journal entry from 3 years earlier particularly struck me. Watched Dara today handling my investment questions. So capable, so steady. Reminds me of my own mother, the quiet strength that holds families together without demanding credit. Laura never understood that kind of strength, always mistaking flash for substance. I worry what will happen when I'm gone. As the court date approached, Mr. Patterson's team uncovered documentation proving Mother had attempted to access Nana L's accounts while she was hospitalized. Bank records showed Jessica had withdrawn $2,000 using Nana L's ATM card the day after her stroke, claiming it was for medical expenses that insurance records showed were fully covered. We have enough to not only defend the will but potentially file criminal charges for attempted elder financial abuse, Mr. Patterson informed me. Though that would be your decision. The night before court, I visited Nana L's grave with fresh flowers. The autumn leaves crunched beneath my feet as I approached the simple yet elegant headstone we had selected together during one of our practical conversations about her eventual passing. I'm trying to honor your wishes, I whispered, arranging chrysanthemums in the small vase. But it's harder than I expected. Not the legal part, but seeing how much Mother and Jessica hate me for this. Was there something I could have done differently? The cemetery remained silent, but the evening breeze rustled the leaves in a way that felt almost like a response. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Last chance, give me the house and half the investments, I'll drop everything. Mom doesn't need to know our arrangement. Think about it. I didn't respond. Some offers didn't deserve acknowledgement. The county courthouse stood imposing against the clear October sky, its limestone facade, a testament to permanence and order in contrast to the chaos of recent months. I arrived early, dressed in a conservative navy suit, hair neatly pulled back, the picture of professional composure despite the anxiety churning inside. Mr. Patterson met me on the courthouse steps. Ready, he asked simply. As ready as I'll ever be, I replied, clutching my leather portfolio containing notes I'd meticulously prepared. Mother and Jessica arrived moments before proceedings began, making a calculated entrance designed to draw attention. Mother wore widow's black, despite my father being very much alive, though, living in Arizona with his second wife, while Jessica had chosen a demure floral dress that contrasted sharply with her usual revealing attire. They looked like grief-stricken victims perfectly cast for their roles. Judge Harriet Levinson, a silver-haired woman with piercing eyes and a reputation for no-nonsense efficiency, called the court to order promptly at 9. After preliminary introductions, Mother's attorney Martin Schuyler presented their opening statement. Your Honor, this case represents a tragic exploitation of an elderly woman's vulnerability, he began, his voice resonating with practiced outrage. Eleanor Morgan, suffering from dementia and heavily medicated, was systematically isolated from her loving daughter and granddaughter by the defendant, who took advantage of her confused state to manipulate her estate planning for personal gain. Jessica dabbed at non-existent tears, while Mother nodded solemnly at strategic moments. Mr. Patterson's opening was more measured. This case, Your Honor, is indeed about exploitation, but not by my client. The evidence will show that Mrs. Eleanor Morgan was of sound mind when executing her final will, and that she made conscious, deliberate choices based on concerning behavior she observed from the plaintiffs. Far from being isolated, Mrs. Morgan maintained an active social life until her final illness and consulted multiple advisors, including medical professionals, who will testify to her mental competence. Judge Levinson listened impassively to both sides before stating, I'll hear testimony from the plaintiffs first. Jessica took the stand, transforming into a masterful performer. She described a childhood of special bonds with Nana that I barely recognized, speaking of traditions and shared experiences that had never occurred. With voice quavering perfectly, she described how I had allegedly begun limiting her access to our grandmother. Whenever I would visit, Dara would be there watching everything I said. Nana seemed afraid to speak freely around her. Once, when I brought paperwork to help Nana organize her finances, Dara practically ripped it out of my hands, saying she would handle everything. Mother's testimony followed a similar narrative, portraying herself as a devoted daughter, cruelly separated from her ailing mother by my manipulative presence. Eleanor and I spoke daily for 30 years until Dara moved closer and began screening her calls, she claimed, conveniently forgetting the years when she'd gone weeks without visiting Nana L. During cross-examination, Mr. Patterson remained methodical. Mrs. Morgan, can you explain these bank records showing you attempted to transfer $20,000 from your mother's account to your personal account 2 days after she was hospitalized for her stroke? Mother flushed. That was a misunderstanding with the bank. Eleanor had promised to help with some temporary financial difficulties. And these text messages between you and your daughter discussing, and I quote, how to get the old lady to sign over the house before she gets worse. Another misunderstanding. By the time our side presented its case, the narrative had already begun shifting. The first surprise witness was Maria Gonzalez, Nana L's home health nurse for the final year of her life. Miss Morgan was the only family member who learned how to properly help Mrs. Eleanor with her medications and physical therapy, Maria testified. She visited at least 3 times every week, often more. The mother and the sister, they came maybe once a month, usually when they wanted something. Mr. Patterson presented Nana L's detailed visitor log, which Maria had helped maintain as part of her care records. The entries confirmed my regular presence and the conspicuous absence of Mother and Jessica, except for clustered visits that coincided with financial discussions. Next came the financial evidence records of Mother's multiple loans taken against anticipated inheritance. Jessica's use of Nana L's credit cards for personal expenses and documented attempts to change account beneficiaries during Nana L's hospitalization. The most powerful testimony came from Nana L herself through her video deposition. The courtroom fell silent as her image appeared on the monitor, dignity intact despite her physical frailty. I am recording this statement because I fear my wishes may be challenged after I'm gone, she began. I want to be absolutely clear, I am making these decisions with full awareness and after careful consideration. I love all my family, but I cannot reward manipulation and greed. She detailed specific incidents, Jessica bringing power of attorney documents disguised as routine paperwork, Mother suggesting she sell family heirlooms for liquidity, while already planning distributions to Jessica, both of them discussing renovations to the house within her hearing, as if she were already gone. Most damaging were the audio recordings Nana L had secretly made during several visits capturing Mother and Jessica discussing how they would spend their inheritance. Once we sell those worthless books and antiques, we can modernize the whole place. Jessica's voice rang clearly through the courtroom. God, I can't wait until it's all mine. Just keep playing nice for a few more months, Mother's voice responded. The doctor said her condition is deteriorating faster than expected. Jessica visibly paled as her own voice continued. What about Dara? She's always sniffing around. Don't worry about your sister, Mother replied dismissively. I've handled her all her life. She'll accept whatever we decide. Judge Levinson's expression remained neutral, but her eyes sharpened as the recordings played. During Jessica's cross-examination about these recordings, the carefully constructed facade finally cracked. You don't understand, Jessica burst out after persistent questioning. That house and money were supposed to be mine. Mom promised me for years that she'd make sure Nana left everything to me. It's not fair that Dara gets rewarded just for being some perfect granddaughter while I get nothing. So you admit you expected to receive the inheritance regardless of your grandmother's wishes, Mr. Patterson asked quietly. Well, yes, Mom said. Jessica stopped abruptly, realizing her mistake. Mother stood up. This is outrageous. We're the victims here. Mrs. Morgan, sit down immediately, or I will have you removed, Judge Levinson ordered sharply. After 4 grueling hours of testimony, Judge Levinson called a brief recess before delivering her ruling. In the courthouse hallway, I stood alone by a window watching autumn leaves swirl across the lawn. When court resumed, Judge Levinson wasted no time. Having reviewed all evidence and testimony, I find absolutely no grounds to invalidate Eleanor Morgan's will. The documentation of her mental competence is thorough and unimpeachable. Furthermore, the evidence suggests a troubling pattern of attempted financial exploitation by the plaintiffs. She looked directly at Mother and Jessica. This court upholds the will in its entirety and orders the plaintiffs to pay all legal costs associated with this frivolous contest. Additionally, I am referring evidence of potential financial elder abuse to the district attorney's office for review. The gavel's decisive crack echoed finality. Outside the courthouse, several family members who had attended the proceedings approached me. Aunt Patty hugged me tightly. Your grandmother would be proud, she whispered. Cousins who had initially kept their distance now offered congratulations and support. I felt no triumph, only a profound sadness that family relationships had deteriorated to courtroom battles and exposed secrets. But beneath the sadness lay something else. the quiet certainty that I had honored Nana L's wishes and protected her legacy just as she had trusted me to do. 6 months after the court case, spring brought new beginnings in more ways than one. The Victorian house on Maple Street had weathered another winter, its foundation as solid as when it was built in 1887. Inside, subtle changes reflected my presence while honoring Nana L's spirit, fresh paint in her favorite colors, updated plumbing that had desperately needed attention, family photos rearranged to tell our shared story. Following the guidance in Nana L's journals, I established the Eleanor Morgan Foundation with a portion of the inheritance. The foundation focused on two areas close to her heart: dignity-centered elder care and financial literacy programs for young women. The first scholarship had been awarded to a promising accounting student from our local community college, a young woman who reminded me of myself at that age, determined, serious, and in need of someone believing in her potential. Mother and Jessica had moved to Florida shortly after the court case, unable to face the community that had witnessed their exposure. Our communication remained minimal and strained. Jessica occasionally sent terse updates about her life, more obligation than connection. Mother had not contacted me directly since the judge's ruling, communicating only through her attorney regarding required documentation for Jessica's trust stipend. Despite fulfilling the employment requirement to receive her monthly allowance, Jessica had already called 3 times requesting advances for emergencies that investigation revealed were shopping sprees and luxury spa weekends. Each time I adhered to the trust guidelines which Nana L had designed, not for punishment but to encourage responsibility. Brad had filed for divorce from Jessica 2 months after the trial, citing irreconcilable differences in the paperwork but moral incompatibility when we occasionally met for coffee. We had developed an unexpected friendship, bonding over shared experiences with Jessica's manipulations and supporting each other through the emotional aftermath. Extended family relationships had slowly begun healing. Uncle Thomas visited regularly, helping me sort through Grandpa Morgan's tools in the garage and sharing stories I'd never heard about Nana L's younger years. Cousins, who had initially sided with Mother, gradually returned to family gatherings at the house, awkwardness giving way to new connections. The journey through grief, betrayal, and eventual healing had changed me. Professional therapy helped process the lifetime of maternal rejection that the court case had brutally highlighted. Journaling, a habit learned from Nana L, provided private space to work through feelings too complex for casual conversation. Slowly, the sharp edges of pain dulled, not through forgetting, but through acceptance and growth. Renovating Nana L's house became a metaphor for my internal renovation. Some rooms I preserved almost exactly as she had kept them, honoring traditions worth maintaining. Others I thoughtfully updated, acknowledging that growth requires change. Throughout, I kept her essence present while making space for my own. In her study, I discovered a hidden drawer containing more of her writings, including letters she had written to me but never sent. "My dearest Dara," one began, "I see how my daughter's treatment wounds you, though you hide it well. Please know that being overlooked by those who should cherish you speaks to their limitations, not your worth. Some people can only see what glitters, missing the true diamonds before them. Dating again seemed impossible at first, wounds too fresh and trust too fragile. But 6 months after the trial, I accepted dinner with Michael, a landscape architect I'd met while replanting Nana L's perennial garden. He appreciated my cautious pace, shared my love of historic homes, and listened without judgment to the complicated family story. His presence brought lightness I had forgotten could exist. 3 weeks ago, an unexpected letter arrived from Jessica. Unlike her previous communications, this one contained no demands or accusations. "I've been thinking about Nana and how disappointed she would be in how I've behaved," she wrote. "I'm not asking for forgiveness or more money. I just wanted you to know I'm starting to understand why she made the choices she did. Maybe someday we can talk again as sisters instead of opponents." Mother remained unrepentant, but Jessica's small step toward accountability opened a door I had thought permanently closed. I responded with a brief note acknowledging her letter and expressing openness to future conversation. Reconciliation might never come, but the possibility no longer seemed impossible. On the anniversary of Nana L's passing, I hosted a small gathering at the house. Uncle Thomas came with his wife, Aunt Patty, brought her famous apple pie, and a few of Nana's closest friends shared stories I'd never heard. Even Brad attended, briefly bringing yellow roses, Nana L's favorite. Mother and Jessica were absent, but their shadows no longer dominated the space. After everyone left, I sat alone in the garden Nana L. and I had tended together for so many years. The spring bulbs we had planted the autumn before her final illness had pushed through the soil, persistent life emerging from dormancy. I knelt in the soft earth, adding new perennials that would return year after year, extending her legacy in living color. "I think I finally understand what you meant by trusting the process," Nana, I said aloud, patting soil around a lavender plant. It wasn't just about the will or the legal proceedings. It was about trusting that truth eventually surfaces, that doing the right thing matters, even when it's difficult, that some wounds must be cleaned before they can heal. The evening light filtered through the trees, casting the same patterns it had for generations of our family. In that moment, I felt a deep peace. The inheritance Nana L had left wasn't primarily about property or finances, though those provided security and opportunity. The true inheritance was the example of her integrity, the strength she had modeled, and the love that had shaped me into someone capable of carrying forward her values. Some family bonds had proven toxic, others sustaining. Some relationships might never heal, while new connections had formed where least expected. Through it all, I had discovered my own capacity for standing firm in truth, while remaining open to reconciliation. Perhaps that balance was Nana L's greatest gift. As twilight deepened, I gathered my gardening tools and headed inside, leaving the porch light on out of habit. Some part of me still expected to see Nana L in her rocking chair, waiting to hear about my day. That chair remained empty, but her presence filled the house in countless other ways. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against family members who tried to take advantage of you? Or perhaps you've been blessed with family who always supported you? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming family challenges. And remember, sometimes the most valuable inheritance isn't what's listed in a will, but the strength we find within ourselves when tested. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the courage to protect what matters most in your own life.